Today's class, we are going to learn the second half of chapter 73 in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. In this second half, we will discuss the laws of renting and lending different either property or items or property or utensils to Gentiles. What are the laws? Earlier, we just discussed if you want a Gentile to do work for you, and you
said you had something about
They would sew on a foreskin, and I didn't think they had that surgical capability in those days. Look at chat. That'll show you how it was done in like the year 100 or the year. I think Hanukkah is around that time. Or 100 before
I'm not really very interested in it.
yeah,
I know how it was done lately.
When teachers have problems with
what problems with what?
With computers.
Oh, I got muted.
Often means that
You got muted now.
What does it also mean?
it means that there's something very important that we all need to learn, and that's why there's trouble on the line.
The more important, the more trouble.
There's like a lot of opposition or something. That's what somebody told me once. I don't know if it's true.
It's called divine opposition.
They don't want people.
Rabbi Lifshitz, could you please unmute yourself? We can't hear you.
Can't hear anything.
No, we could hear her.
okay.
Yeah. We can't hear.
Okay, sorry about that. Now I'm unmuted. There are certain things that are allowed to be rented on rented to a Gentile. You could rent a Gentile before Shabbos, and the Gentile could you're allowed to have that the Gentile is renting out that property on Shabbos.
Going on with her. That's why that one Devar Torah we had with the rabbi that was dedicated to her.
Oh, okay. Anyway, please give her our regards if you see her.
I will.
Yeah, it's been many, many years, but we remember Monique so well. She always rode her bike around the neighborhood, always got exercise, always on her bike.
I'm just going to continue the class. Sorry to
Oh, wait.
interrupt.
No, it's all right. My computer treats me the same way.
Look, he's frozen again. Again.
I'm frozen? Okay.
I hear you.
No, you're not. You're just
We hear
thinking.
ya.
Okay.
I heard that.
What would be, does anyone want to suggest what would be why in certain cases would it be forbidden to rent property, to rent something out to a Gentile? if you rent it out to the Gentile, it becomes now the Gentiles. That's where the Gentile is going to live. For instance, if you're going, or the Gentile has the possession of that thing. If I give a field to a Gentile, I rent out the field, and now is the one that the tenant now. Okay, you call that with the house. I'm not sure exactly the right wording, but for the one that's renting it out, that's now using it, is allowed to do whatever they want in that area, whether it's a field or it's or something else. But other examples in this halacha is going to be a bathhouse. If someone rents out, then now they're going to be in charge of the bathhouse. It was more common those days. Nowadays, it's not so common. What would be the possible issue of renting out a field or a bathhouse to a Gentile?
Well, what if the Gentile uses it for idolatrous purposes? Like puts up an idol and bows to it on that property, which is actually your property, even though he's renting it.
I would think legally, if he's renting the property, he can do whatever he wants, as long as it's not an immoral act. But even that thing has to be written into the lease. And if you have certain things that you consider immoral, then that and do not want done, those things have to be in the lease. Period.
Okay, so you're bringing up a good point that there's a problem of maybe you have to make sure that there's not a problem of idolatry done on your property. But let's say we're talking about here, if let's say you put up make that condition that there's no worry of idolatry, so no worry of any immoral behavior happening on the property. What would be
What about Shemitah?
What about a Shabbos? So let's put any part of Torah aside besides about Shabbos. Any problem of having a Gentile renting out a property on Shabbos?
If you want
Only
Shabbos
if it's
observed
close
on the
by.
property that you're renting, that has to be in the lease.
It has to do with the location of the field, I think. How far away it is from a Jewish community or something like that.
That is a point. That is a correct point. Yeah.
Something we read. I don't
That
know.
was from last week, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, so that's saying that was talking about if you are just, the Gentile is your worker. Here he's not a worker. You're renting to the Gentile.
As long as you don't do it on Shabbos. As long as you don't
you can
do
do
the
it on
business
Shabbos.
transaction on Shabbos.
I'll give
think
another
if he's
example.
renting the property,
I'll
it's
give
easy
another
to do it.
example. If I own a building or a storefront, am I allowed to rent out the storefront to a Gentile? The Gentile will have a business open on Shabbos, a store open on Shabbos. It's now the Gentile's property. He's renting from me. Would that?
Not in a Jewish neighborhood.
Well, the customers may not come, but it's his store now.
That's what I said.
So we see there's a lot to discuss in this idea, but I want to make just a point, bring out an idea. What a concern that there could be. There's a couple concerns. Concern number one is that other Jewish people might not know that the Gentile is renting this property from you, whether it be a store or whether it be a field. They might think that the Gentile is not renting it from you, but you're hiring the Gentile to work for you. When they see a Gentile working in a bathhouse or working in a store, they might think that you have a store or a bathhouse. They're working for you on Shabbos, and a Gentile is not allowed to do work for a Jew on Shabbos. So that's one concern.
Well, if he's renting from you, he's not working for you, he's working for himself. And what he
Correct.
does is not your business. I'm sorry.
I hear you're bringing up a good point, but the rabbis, there's a concern of other people might think that he's being your worker, even though in reality he's not your worker, but you're just renting to him and he's working for himself. He now is the Gentile is now doing his own work, his or her own work. Still, we want Shabbos to be observed properly, and that others won't make mistakes. So the rabbi said, you have to, in a case that we're worried that other people might think that the Gentile is being hired as a worker, we are not going to allow a Jew to rent out that property to a Gentile. So in this halacha 7, we're going to see what type of properties is it regular to rent to a Gentile. It's regular to rent out, and therefore people aren't going to think when they see a Gentile working in such property that the Gentile was hired out to work in the property, but they're going to think that the Gentile rented the property from a Jew. So it depends what type of property it is. If it's something that it's regular to rent out, then there's no concern. But if the regular thing is to hire a worker and it's irregular to rent out such property, then we're going to say, then it's going to be forbidden because of the concern, since it's regular to not rent it out, other Jews are going to think that it wasn't rented out. So let's see halacha 7 in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. With those that have the Maznayim Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, it's on page 20.
Yeah, okay.
Mi sheyesh le'sada oirei chayim. One that owns a field or a mill to grind wheat, grind grain. So those type of things, it is mutter lahaskiran lo'evid kechavim. It is permissible. You're allowed to rent it to a Gentile. And even though that the Gentile is going to do forbidden labor in them on Shabbos. So for a field or a mill, it is permissible to rent out to a Gentile. Although the Gentile is going to do work, even though the Gentile will do work with them on Shabbos, because they are type of things that it's regular to rent out that property or that utensil by a mill. But a bathhouse, it is forbidden to rent it out to a Gentile. If you don't own the bathhouse, you're just renting the bathhouse. The Jew is just renting the bathhouse from a Gentile, and there's another Gentile that owns it, and the Jew wants to sublease it to a Gentile. You have to ask a rabbinic authority if it's permissible. And likewise, a person that runs a tax authority or a hotel, or a brick factory or a glass factory, they own any of those type of things, it's necessary to ask a rabbinic authority how one should conduct with them, if it's permissible to have rented out to a Gentile for Shabbos. Rented out to a Gentile. So in short, this halacha tells us that when there's a concern that it's not regular to rent out a certain type of property, you are not allowed to rent it out to a Gentile for Shabbos. Now, even by a bathhouse, it's not clear cut that it's always forbidden. If the bathhouse, in your community, it is the regular custom to rent out a bathhouse and not to have a Gentile worker, then it will be permissible. Let's move on to halacha ches. Now, here is where the idea of a Shabbos. Yeah.
I have a question. So how do you practically carry that out? It's against the law of the land to discriminate, to exclude somebody who's not Jewish. That will put you in violation of laws.
Say the question. I didn't understand the question.
If you were to refuse somebody who wanted to rent property because he's not Jewish,
right,
you would be in violation of civil rights laws.
Yeah.
So how do you practically carry out?
Oh, good question. So what I think this is what it comes to mind is that you would have to tell the Gentile, I'm allowing you to rent out for me, but you're not allowed to do work on Shabbos. No one's allowed to use the bathhouse on Shabbos. Or if you rent out a store, you own a store and you want a Gentile to now, you want to rent the store to a Gentile, you have to tell the Gentile this store can't be open on Shabbos. Now, as we saw in this halacha, you have to ask a rabbinic authority. It's not so simple. It's not every case. You have to look at it for itself. And there could be cases that maybe the Gentile could do work on it on Shabbos. It's like you're mentioning, if it's the law, maybe there's more room to be lenient. I didn't see, I don't know the law to every specific case, just explaining the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Right?
When we get into civil rights legislation, however, there must be some way that you can get around it, because in kosher vineyards, like in California, for certain aspects of kosher winemaking, it can only be done by a male and only be done by a Jew. But somehow they managed to get around the discrimination laws. So those laws are not quite as tight as we might think. You can get around them somehow.
Okay.
For religious purposes, you can.
Yeah, I mean, these situations, I would suggest that you get legal opinion, legal consultation as well as rabbinic consultation, and maybe get them together.
Yeah. Or a rabbi who's also a lawyer.
Yeah.
The rabbi has to be informed about the legal situation, what's the legal situation, what's the legal law.
Well, you're talking about a situation that you have to conform to both, and that can be very difficult.
Yes, it's that's why I think one of the reasons why you have to, it's not clearly always forbidden. There's times that maybe it could be permissible. It says you should ask a rabbi in in certain situations, like for a hotel or if you're taking a tax authority, you have a glass company, you have a brick company, a glass factory, a brick factory. It doesn't say it's forbidden. It says you have to ask a rabbi. Maybe it could be permissible.
Maybe he'll find a loophole for you.
It's something that each situation has to be judged by itself. It can't be, it's not always going to be forbidden or always going to be permissible. Each situation has to be judged. You need a rabbi to look at the situation and come with the ruling. Usually the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch will tell us a conclusive ruling, but over here it tells us you have to ask a rabbi because it's not so clear. It's not clear cut.
I think you have to ask a posik.
Yeah. A rabbinic authority. Let's move on to halacha 8. Before I move on to halacha 8, I'm just mentioning that stores, if it was always used by a Jew, the store, and now they want to rent it to a Gentile, it could be problematic. It should also be looked. You should speak to a rabbinic authority in such a case. Halacha 8. Let me just mute everyone.
Excuse me, before you go on, Rabbi?
Yeah.
A lot of these laws seem to be concerned about what others think. Not that that's really what's going on, but somebody might think that, well, whatever the thing is. Why, if you didn't do anything wrong, why is it such a big thing? If you didn't do anything, it's just somebody else's interpretation. They should ask you if it's somebody who's concerned about you and your life. It's just, it's not necessarily what the fact is.
Very good question.
I think of the same question myself. If we're not doing anything wrong, why does it matter what the other people think?
Thank you.
So,
does it have to do with the? I'm sorry.
Sometimes we have to. The way I see it, I'm not certain about this, but this is what the way I see it. This is what I think. Is that we're one Jewish nation, and we're here not just that we do the right thing, but we want to make sure that everyone does the right thing. And just there are certain things that the rabbis felt that people are not so they make mistakes with these laws, and they're not sure what the law is. So when they see when they see someone else not keeping when they see someone else doing something and it looks to the observer's eye, it seems to the observer's eyes that something is happening when it's really something else happening. Like in our example, it seems like it seems to the observer that one is hiring a worker on Shabbos, a Gentile to work for them on Shabbos, that one is hiring a Gentile to work on Shabbos, even though in reality the Gentile is renting and not working. There's the because that it's not just about did you right now do the right thing, but it's what's going to be in the future. Is it going to affect someone else to make a mistake in the future? We felt, and if it's something that the rabbis felt is very likely and they felt like this could really cause a widespread of false understanding of what the law is, they made a rule that you shouldn't do it in this manner, even though intrinsically it is permissible to do it. They didn't want a widespread of people learning, understanding the Torah in the incorrect way. I think that's the idea, that certain things they felt if people would do it in a certain way, an observer would understand the law is when it's supposed to be forbidden, they're going to think it's permissible, and that's going to spread. It's going to be a widespread, and that's the concern that the rabbis had.
Excuse me, Rabbi. Is it called resisting the appearance of evil, even though you're not doing whatever isn't permissible? I think they call it resisting the appearance of evil or doing something out of sort.
Somebody might see it and say, oh, well, if he does it and he's so observant, so everybody can do it. That's what you're referring to, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard of this quote before, but yeah, that's the idea. That if someone's going to say, if this person's doing it, and really when the person is doing it correctly, but it appears that the person's doing it incorrect, it's just gonna be a misunderstanding and cause another person to do something forbidden. But it was a very good question. Very good question. That's just what I think the reason is. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Halacha 8. Halacha 8 is going to discuss, is it permissible for a Gentile to do forbidden labor in a Jew's home, even when the Gentile isn't doing it for the Jew? Let's say, an example, you have a Gentile in your home, a Gentile is in your home, and they want the light on. You're not telling the Gentile to turn on the light, and the Gentile isn't turning on the light because you want it on, but the Gentile isn't turning it on because you want it on. Rather, the Gentile's turning it on because the Gentile wants it on. Even if the Jew would also want it on, would the Gentile be able to do it? Now, or another example, you have a Gentile that you have cleaning help on Shabbos. Washing the dishes is permissible, but to wash the dishes with hot water is forbidden. But this that the Gentile is doing it with hot water is for the Gentile's own. That's just the Gentile's own choice. You just ask the Gentile to wash dishes. They could do it with cold water. Let's see.
Very clean.
What?
Your dishes aren't going to get very clean.
Won't be as good. It's true. It's harder with cold water. Warm water. Let's say it's not cold. Whatever. I
feel sorry for him.
So let's see what the halacha says. Halacha 8. Bebeise shal Yisrael aser laniach la'evei kachavim shiasa malacha b'shum oifen. In a Jew's home, it is forbidden to allow a Gentile to do work in any situation. Even a Gentile servant that wants to do work for his or her own self, the Jew has to rebuke the Gentile for doing work. Now, let me mention something very important. According to the Alter Rebbe, the Chabad custom, it is permissible for a Gentile to do work for their own, if it's for themselves. So if a Gentile wants to turn on the light, because the Gentile wants light in the house, it will be permissible. Or, so this is the idea of a Shabbos guy, where the Shabbos guy comes in. If the Shabbos guy is doing it for themselves, for his or herself, then it will be permitted in whatever, not, I wouldn't say across the board. It's not as simple, but you see the idea that there could be room, it could be permitted. And further, it wouldn't be necessary for the Jew to not have benefit from it. Meaning, if the Gentile turns on the light, the Jew doesn't have to go to a different room. They could, once the Gentile did it for him or herself, it is permitted for the Jew to use the light or something else that was done. Or yeah. That's just important to keep in mind that according to the Alter Rebbe, it is permissible for a Gentile to do forbidden work when it's for the Gentile. Let's go on to Halacha 9. Halacha 9 is going to discuss, can one receive clothing from, could one receive clothing from a Gentile on Shabbos? If a Gentile, you gave a garment to a Gentile to do work with it on Shabbos, to do work with it before Shabbos. And it just happens that the Gentile comes to your house saying, "Oh, I want to give you your suit or your dress that I tailored. I want to give it to you now." They come to your house. Nowadays, most people go to the cleaners to do things. They don't really come to your house. But let's say it's a case that they would come to your house to deliver your clothing. Would it be permissible to wear that clothing on Shabbos? Let's see inside. Halacha 9. Uman Eved Kachavim. She'asa Malbush B'Shvil Yisrael. You have a Gentile tailor that made a garment for a Jew. Ve'evia loy b'Shabbos, and brought the garment on Shabbos to the Jew. Mutter l'lovshay. It is permissible to wear that garment. Ve'im yedua shegamre b'Shabbos, ein l'lovshay ki'im l'tzerach gadol. However, if you know that the Gentile finished the work of tailoring the garment on Shabbos, then you should not wear the garment unless it's very necessary for you to wear the garment. Let's say that's your only clothing that you have. That's clean clothing. But it's forbidden to buy utensils or clothing from an artisan, even if the artisan is a Jew, on Shabbos or on Yontif, on a Jewish festival. So that's the problem. You're not allowed to buy something on Shabbos or Yontif. Does anyone know the reason? What's the reason why you're not allowed to buy? You're not allowed to buy something on Shabbos.
Well, that's handling money, and you're not allowed to do anything with money on Shabbos.
So that's right. Very good. That's one problem. But let's say I would tell even a purchase that I tell the Gentile pay after Shabbos would be forbidden. What would be the reason for that?
Well, you're still discussing money on Shabbos. Be better to pay for it on Friday and pick it up on Shabbos.
Very good. Very good. Very good. That's the idea. That you're still discussing money. There's still the idea of money that's involved. So that's what we're learning over here. You're not allowed to buy utensils or clothing from an artisan, even if it's a Jewish artisan, on Shabbos or on Yontif. And a Gentile that isn't an artisan, he doesn't make the shoes, but he just sells shoes, or he sells something else. If the Gentile just sells it without fashioning the clothing or the garment or whatever, or something or the like, mutali so hamakirei likach mimenu b'Shabbos ulene'alom. It's permissible for a Jew that knows that Gentile to take on Shabbos to take a pair of shoes on Shabbos and to wear that shoe and to wear that shoe on Shabbos. Like Thomas was saying, as long as you're not going to mention about money. So if there's a situation that they're fine with, that a Gentile would be fine with you just taking the shoes without mentioning money, and they just know that you're going to pay after Shabbos, but you didn't mention anything, then it'll be permissible. Not so common these days, but the times of the Shulchan Aruch, things, they had a little bit of a different culture, and maybe it could happen. So it's also a law we speak about this law because there is that possibility, even though it's not so common.
Yeah, it'd still be better to call Friday afternoon, give them your credit card number, and pick it up Saturday.
Pick it up after
Sunday, yeah, or whatever.
It's still 100%. It's still better, but it's still be better. Another condition in order for a Jew to take something from a non-Jew, from a Gentile, would be that it has to be that this object didn't come from outside the Shabbos limits. The Shabbos limits is that if something comes from outside the city, more than roughly around 3,000 feet outside the city, then it's forbidden to then it'll be forbidden to it's forbidden to have something that comes for a Jew to carry or do anything with an object that came from outside the Shabbos limits. So it would be necessary that this item was always within 3,000 feet of the city. But it's just important to know that if there isn't any space between one city to the next that's more than 3,000 feet, there's always homes around it There's not there's no area of 3,000 empty space without anyone living there. Then you would be able to carry from one city to the next. It's only a problem when there's a space of 3,000 feet outside the city that there's no city near it. So now from Halacha 9, what do we see? Just to summarize, that you're allowed to, if a Gentile brings you something that he did work on Shabbos with, let's say a garment, he hemmed your pants or your dress, or sewed a button onto your clothing and brings it to you on Shabbos, you're allowed to wear that clothing or use that thing if it's permissible to use on Shabbos, as long as the Gentile didn't finish the work on Shabbos. And then we mentioned that you're not allowed to you're not allowed to go to a Gentile artisan and take the object from the artist, from the Gentile on Shabbos, or from a Jew on Shabbos. But if they're not an artisan, but they just sell an item, let's say shoes or clothing or something else, then you're allowed to take the item as long as you're not mentioning any money on Shabbos. Now let's go to Halacha 10. Halacha 10 is going to go back into the laws of renting and also talk about the laws of lending. When is one allowed to rent to a Gentile? Are you allowed to rent Friday, or you have to rent further away from Shabbos? Let's say only Thursday. So that's what's going to be discussed in Halacha 10. The time that it's permissible to rent something to a Gentile. Let's see inside. Kelim she'osim behem malacha. Utensils that you use for forbidden labor. What's the example of this? Kegoin macharesha v'kayetze ba. For example, a plow or something similar to it. Let's say a lawnmower. The law is also lahasker lo'ivi kechavim be'erev Shabbos. It is forbidden to rent such an object to a Gentile on Friday. So if the object is used for forbidden labor, you're not allowed to rent it to a Gentile on Friday. Even though we're not commanded that our utensils don't work on Shabbos, we're not commanded that our utensils don't work on Shabbos. Our utensils are allowed to do work on Shabbos as long as we're not doing work with them on Shabbos. Unlike our animals, the Torah says, we have to make sure our animals don't work on Shabbos. So even though our utensils are not commanded not to work on Shabbos, nevertheless, since that a Jew is getting paid and he's renting out this object on Friday, it appears as if the Gentile is the Jew's agent. It seems like and this is going back to the way it appears to other people. It appears that when a Gentile is doing work with something right after the Gentile received it from a Jew, it appears like the Gentile is doing work for the Jew. Because it's not yet, there's no name yet since it hasn't been so much time that the Gentile has this object, it looks like the Gentile didn't rent it, but just is doing work for the Jew. When the Gentile has it for a longer period of time, it seems like he rented it from the Jew. And on Thursday, it is permissible, if you rent it, it is permissible to rent an object on Thursday, because that's already further away from Shabbos. So just another example, that's more a modern example. If someone wants to rent out their car, they would not be able to rent out their car. They shouldn't rent out their car on Friday. Start the time to rent out the car. Start renting it out on Friday, but they should do it earlier in the week, Thursday or Wednesday, in order that it shouldn't look that in order that there's more time before Shabbos that the rental agreement began. Now, that's about renting. What about lending? Lending is going to have a different law. Yeah.
Why should it matter if you rent on a Friday to a goy? He's allowed to use it on a Shabbos. Why would it be prevented? Why or prohibited?
So he's allowed to use it on. So the reason is that since there hasn't been so much time, it was just before Shabbos that the guy is.
He takes possession and uses it on Shabbos. So what's the issue?
So intrinsically, there's no issue, but it's what does it look to other people? Other people don't know. Other people don't know that the guy rented it from you, because it's been such a short amount of time that the guy had it.
Yeah, somebody might recognize it as being your car and think you're driving it.
But if somebody picks it up before Shabbos starts, like Shabbos starts at 6 o'clock and they pick it up at 3 o'clock, I don't see there should be a problem.
What would be the difference if the car was picked up on Thursday? It would still be an issue, a potential issue if somebody sees presumably a non-Jewish person driving the car and making a mistake by thinking you're benefiting from it. I don't see how it avoids the issue.
You're bringing up a very good point. These laws are very complex and very difficult to understand. It's certain things it could be that what makes it so difficult is because of our lifestyle change. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know. Living in a shtetl is very different than our lifestyle, where when you live in a shtetl, people start knowing things. They figure out, oh, this happened today, and everyone will know today this happened. So if on Friday, right before Shabbos, you rent something to a guy, it seems like people might not know that it was a rental agreement, and it will seem like the guy is your worker. But if it's on Thursday, news would already go around the town, and people will say, and people already know that it's a rental, the guy rented it and the guy is not your worker. I think it's because of that. I don't know. I'm not. So nowadays, when you think about it nowadays, it's harder to understand. You rent out your car on Thursday, you rent out on Friday. What's changing so much that people are going to understand it differently? But that's what I think. I'm not. It's definitely. I hear the question. I'm not certain. I'm not so sure about it. The reasoning is a little tough for me to understand also.
I think you have to give him a chance. You have to give him a chance to use it before Shabbos.
So that's actually a different law. Here we're
It
saying
might be the point.
the whole Friday the whole Friday you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to rent out to a Gentile. Even if it's Friday morning and they have a chance to do the work before Shabbos.
Yeah.
It's a hard law to understand. I'm not sure. I think that's what I was saying. I think it's more because of the lifestyle. But we keep the laws even though the lifestyle changed.
I have a real problem because every time we say, oh, but the lifestyle then was different. So it's like that says to me it's not applicable today. And if one thing is not applicable today, then like maybe none of, I know that's not nice, but I can't help but thinking it.
It's fine to ask the question.
If one thing it was
It's
applicable years ago and is not applicable today, maybe the whole book.
So it's
applicable
today. I have an example.
Okay.
On Friday, we are concentrating on preparing for Shabbos.
Yes.
Versus trying to rent something out, So that's the way I could see it maybe being applicable, if that helps. Does that make sense, Rabbi?
It is a good point that Shabbos you should be preparing for Shabbos and not focus on preparing for Shabbos and not trying to focus on renting it out. But so that is a good point. Over maybe that's enough. That could be. I'm saying over here it is saying a different idea as well, but maybe that's a good point it's a very applicable idea for us to remember nowadays. That we should be preparing for Shabbos when it comes Friday and not working on other things. Focusing on preparing for Shabbos. That is a very applicable idea that we should have. Thank you, Miranda. Thanks. But just to go back, everything is telling us what we're supposed to be doing. Even if this is actually one of the messages of Hanukkah is that if something is, one of the messages of Hanukkah is that we should, the Greeks were fine if we learned Torah. They're fine if we performed mitzvahs, commandments. If we did mitzvahs, what they were fighting, they're battling against the Jewish nation, the Jewish people, was that you shouldn't learn Torah in a way that's higher than your own understanding. Just to learn Torah because Hashem told you to learn Torah. They wanted, okay, you want to learn Torah because you think that it's a good, it's a very, 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 it has a lot of wisdom in it. They agreed with that. But to learn Torah because this is Hashem's Torah, they were against it. And likewise by the mitzvahs, the battle was, there's certain mitzvahs that we don't know the reason. They're saying those mitzvahs you shouldn't do. The mitzvahs that make sense, let's say honoring your parents or celebrating festivals because Hashem did miracles for you, or and not to steal, not to kidnap, mitzvahs like that, they were fine for the Jewish people to do. Their battle was against the mitzvahs that didn't have any that we didn't understand. What was the reason that this is a mitzvah? Just the only reason why we were doing the mitzvah is because Hashem told us to do it, not because we understood why it was a good thing to do. So to tie that into our learning, the rabbis felt that there are certain things that they're not intrinsically forbidden. They're not biblically forbidden, but they're rabbinically forbidden because it's rabbinical forbidden because they found a concern. So even when in our lifestyle there isn't that concern, still it's a whole different discussion, but we still keep on to that. We still remain with doing the law as the rabbi set it up for us to do. And I just felt it's a little tied into the message of one of the messages of Hanukkah, of doing things even when we don't fully understand what's the gain of doing it. But just because this is what Hashem, it's part of Hashem's Torah.